Hey everybody, welcome to Weight Loss for Women Over 40. I'm your host, Nikki T, and today I have a very special guest on today. Before we get into that, if you are new to this podcast, I want to welcome you in. This is the podcast if you've been struggling with your weight, you've been doing all the diety stuff, and you're just not seeing what you want to, the results that you want to see, and you feel like something's missing. And I'm here to tell you it's mindset. And that is basically what my whole premise is. So if this is the first time viewing this podcast, definitely go binge listen to the other episodes and you're going to get an idea of my method and how it all works and how it all fits together. I've been in this business since 2002, so it's been a long time and I did all the dieter's mentality crap. I even taught it. And I'm so glad that I did in some respect, but I know now that mindset is the missing link and that it is so crucial that you approach the mindset first, then you go into your workouts and then you talk about food and all that stuff. But today I have a very special guest on today. She is one of my former weight loss clients. She's actually working with me in my other company, Maven Heart, which is kind of on under the radar right now. I will be announcing more about Maven Heart in the future, but so she is a private client in Maven Heart as well. But today we're going to talk about Elizabeth's weight loss journey. And I'm really excited to share Elizabeth's story and bring her on and have everyone meet you. So, Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
You are welcome.
I'm excited to
So,
be here.
good, good. I know that sometimes people come on and they're a little nervous. It's all good.
Mhm.
All right. So, Elizabeth, tell everybody a little bit about you don't have to give your address or anything, but like tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do and that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, I just celebrated recently 57 years, so I'm 57. And growing up in the 70s and 80s, like many people, women especially, well, I'm going backwards. Did a lot of dieting, let's just say over the years.
Mhm.
And got to a point where in my 40s and 50s, I felt like I was on a different diet um, every month, always looking for the one that was going to be the magic pill or the magic plan to get to a place where I wasn't on this dieting I'm sorry, Nikki,
It's
this
okay.
dieting roller coaster.
Mhm.
And so, as a 55-year-old, when I kind of found your podcast, I was at a place in my life where I just was feeling really frustrated, really unhappy with where I was with my weight. And I just was at a point where I was kind of like, I don't even know what to do, almost like I was going to give up. I'll just, struggle with my weight for the rest of my life. Or, really didn't know what I was going to do. So, um, you know, I was at a point in my life where I just needed something, and I still believe it was divine intervention that led me to your podcast one day. I was not a podcast listener at all. I was speaking to a friend of mine who was listening to a podcast, and she, suggested seeing what podcasts I would be interested in. And I didn't even know where to look. And I said, well, what's the one thing I'm always interested in? And that was losing weight. So I started kind of Googling or searching podcasts about weight loss, and yours was like the second one that I came to. And I started listening to the podcast, and I would literally stop listening at a moment and look around because I thought Nicole must be inside my head because how does she know that I'm thinking all of these things? So, um, I started listening to your podcast, and it just sounded everything you said sounded so real, and it spoke to me, and it sounded easy, and I wanted to learn more, and then I reached out to you, and that was over 2 years ago. And so the journey with you has been about 2 years, and now at 57 I'm feeling just really confident and happy, and for the first time in my life I kind of feel like I'm not struggling with my weight any longer. And with the tools that you've kind of given me and that I've learned from you, I'm at a really good place that I know I'm never going to kind of go back to the place I was before coming to your podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love, so a majority of my clients actually come from my podcast.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are like, I found you and I binge listened to like all the episodes in a one person was like a car trip. They were on a road trip and they listened to everything. But I love, again, you guys hear me on the podcast all the time. I'm like, I love that this little me getting on this computer and
Mhm.
talking to a computer has helped so many people.
Yeah,
Because even if they're not coming to me as a client, I know of people who have had success just listening to this podcast. So, Elizabeth, I'm so glad that you kind of dabbled into the podcast world. I think that there are certain people that are like, because I know you're not really too big on social media or
I
anything
am
like that.
not. I have
Yeah.
no social media. That's all social media I have. That was kind of, I had a career where I was in education and I didn't really want it. I may start venturing into it, but honestly, even finding your podcast, I joke it was divine intervention, but it really was. I was not on any social media or anything. And I one day just said, okay, let me see if I can find a podcast that speaks to me. And yours was it.
Mm. I love to how little things just pop up into our lives.
Mhm.
And we don't always see it initially because we're like, oh, this is just a podcast. This is just a
Mhm.
thing. And now 2 years later, you're looking back going, yeah, I can see the dots were connected. So tell everyone. So when you joined with me, and by the way, if you hear Elizabeth referencing me as Nicole, that's normal.
Sorry.
No, 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 it's fine. I can always tell clients because again, if you don't know my history, a couple years ago, I was like, I'm going with Nikki T. I was just a fun thing. I was going through a new chapter in my life. Anyway, so if you hear people calling me Nicole, they're people from a couple years ago,
Right.
right? So tell everyone because when I met you, I was running the Jumpstart program,
Hmm.
which is currently now called Mind and Body Jumpstart.
Right.
And it was a small group program, and we ran it. I ran it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Great group of women every
Yeah.
single time we had a group. I particularly remember your group was really kind of special and unique in its own way, in a positive way.
Yeah.
So tell everyone when you joined the Jumpstart, what was it that you were like, yes, I want to join?
Well, when I was listening to your podcast first, like I said, you would lay out these scenarios and you would talk about women um, and the dieter's mentality. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, this person is in my head. They know everything that I'm thinking. And then you would talk about reaching out to you if you wanted more support. And like I said, I was at a point in my life where I was just like, I've tried every single diet out there and they might work for a little while, but nothing lasts. And so I reached out to you and we had a phone call. And you were really very transparent on the first phone call you know, that this was work that could be done. But it was work that wasn't going to be difficult, but you had to be committed to it.
Mhm.
And everything you said, I was just like, I could be there. So I can be in that spot. So because I wanted change, I just wasn't sure how to do it. And,
Mhm.
and I knew the ways that I had done it in the past didn't work long term. So you talked to me about the Jumpstart group, and it sounded really exciting to me to be in something with other women. That I think one of the things about your podcast that I always appreciated was hearing the stories that you'd share and knowing that the thoughts I had and this, struggle with diets and things like that, I was not alone, which I
Mhm.
knew just from having lots of friends. But you talked about having this group of being a place where you could learn together. So coming together for the 12 weeks with the women in the group was really great because not only did we get you and your expertise and your guidance, but when you did you'd start out teaching us something and then we'd have our little coaching sessions. But even if you were coaching another woman in the group, we were all soaking it all in and learning from each other's experiences. So it was really powerful, I think, to be with a group of women where there was no judgment, it was a safe space. And we really, I think, created that safe space pretty quickly. By the end of even the first night, we were really, laughing and kind of sharing. being vulnerable and learning. So that was a really nice space to be in while starting this journey.
Yeah. I always like anytime I'm in a group, and this is reflective of my own experience of being in different groups. Like I want like when you're in a group, you need to have a safe space because especially when it comes to weight loss, it's vulnerable. It's really vulnerable for women to be like, yes, this is what I weigh and this is what I want to weigh, right? Because there's this element of like, this is what I weigh and I'm not happy with it and there's a lot of judgment and shame, but this is the weight that I really want to weigh and the thoughts that you're thinking is like, I'm never going to get there. How
Right.
in the hell am I going to get there? That's like impossible, right? So to be able to admit that to a group of supportive women, I think is really vital and really important. And I do keep that integrity in the group calls that I currently have, which is in like you can now get the Jumpstart by itself, and then you can also get additional support in the group coaching calls. So it's a
Which I
little
have to
different.
say,
Mhm.
just to kind of jump in there,
Yeah.
I'm sure the Jumpstart alone is great. I know it is, but the coaching calls and the work that we do or we did in the coaching calls really was pivotal for me because you have a way of, getting us to look at things from a different angle or to see perspectives that we haven't seen. Because that work with the mindset that we got into was really what makes all the difference, right? In terms of having weight loss that's, sustainable and it doesn't take over your life. So it's that the mindset and the coaching was invaluable.
Yeah, the coaching is really, because it's, I'm sorry, my dog, I don't know if you guys can hear, but my dog is freaking out a little bit. Anyway, the coaching calls I think are so pivotal because anytime you get a program, you can absolutely like exactly what you're saying, Elizabeth. The Jumpstart alone is super helpful, but when you go into the group coaching calls and actually get like individual coaching, and like Elizabeth is saying, it's one thing to get individual coaching, but it's another thing to watch the other women get coaching because you learn so much from watching other people. And it's interesting because when you're in that hot seat and you're getting coached, a lot of times and I know this from my own experience of being coached, you don't remember anything. It's
Mhm.
like you almost black out, right? Because you're like on the spot. But when someone else is getting coaching, you have that perspective of being able to hear what that person's saying, kind of what's the word? Not like you can kind of relate to what they're
Mhm.
saying. And then hear the coaching from a different perspective because it gives you your brain, you're not on the spot.
Yeah, and
Um,
99% of the time, something that they would ask to be coached on or would is something that you needed also. So it
yeah.
was, you might have only had a few minutes with you personally one to one, answering your particular question, but everybody else's questions were our questions too. So it was
Yeah.
really helpful.
Yeah. So do you remember what what were your initial thoughts when you first like day one, week one? Do you remember what your initial thought was when you joined the Jumpstart?
Well, what I do remember about the first call is it was like an hour long and I was looking at my watch or my phone like to see like where we were in the hour. And I kept thinking, she hasn't told us what we can eat yet. Like she hasn't told us what we can't eat yet. Like when is she going to tell me that? I need to know that by the end of this call. And I think toward the end of the hour, one of the women kind of said like, wait, what, you haven't told us, what we can eat, or what we can't. Like, what's the secret here? And you were like, oh, no, no, I'm not going to tell you that. Yeah, you can eat whatever you want. And I just remember that being such like a how is this going to work kind of moment. So that's what I remember the most from that first call, being like, wait, this all seemed doable, and now I don't know how to do it because she just told me that I can eat whatever I want. So that was
Yeah.
interesting.
That is again, I feel like that's a huge difference between my programs and pretty much anybody else's diety program because and I get that a lot. There's always the question, I think another couple other clients were like, wait a minute, we're in week 2 and you haven't said we can't have XYZ or whatever. And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, because you can eat whatever you want.
Mhm.
So I find it interesting too is, when I look back and I taught the dieters mentality stuff, it was all, oh, these are the macros, these are the calories, these are all the food stuff, right? And now, like, we don't really talk about food at all in the sense of like what you're physically eating. We talk about the mindset behind
Right.
the food that you're eating, and
Right.
that's a game changer.
Yes.
That
It is a
really
game
is.
changer. It really, you know, again, this was over 2 years ago that I joined your group, and I've kept the weight off. I mean, it wasn't always a straight down like every week losing. There were ups and downs and ups and downs, and as life goes on, there will be. But I've kept the weight off, and what's most important is I have all the tools in my head now, to continue to keep it off or lose more if I choose to. And like what you just said about the macros, and like I just remember the way my head used to be filled, consumed with. Am I counting calories? Am I counting macros? Am I writing things down? What can I have tonight? If we were going out to dinner, I'd be like anxious the day before because like what could I eat and what couldn't I eat? Or if there was a party coming up. Um, and I just so much space in my head was taken up by, am I being good today? Am I not being good today? Am I going to eat today? Am I, not- just, growing up in the time that I grew up in the 70s and 80s when everything was diets and that's what we learned, like was just decades of that. And now I almost have none of that in my head. I have so much more space inside my brain for like things that matter because I don't have to think about that. And when I did lose the weight, I lost 30 pounds over my time in your group and then after. So, of course, it was noticeable. And sometimes, friends or people I hadn't say, how did you lose the weight? And I would start to talk about the program and you and what I did. And it's always interesting to me when there's not you have to do this and you can't do this, how sometimes people turn off to it so quickly. Like they're like, well, what was the program? What did you? And I'm like, no, you could really eat what you wanted to. You just, had to follow a couple rules and this and that. But they didn't want to hear that. They want a program. And I'm like, but no, this is life. It's not a program. And what you taught is so sustainable and so, it's forever, and it's easy. It really is easy. A lot of mind work with it too.
Hmm.
A lot of mind work. You got to change the way you think about food but that's what lets you, keep going and keep it off.
Yeah. I love when I hear about, especially, it's one thing if I'm talking about it to somebody, but when clients go and talk to their friends about it, I find it fascinating because I know the look that you get. It's
Hmm.
like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? There's no counting calories.
Right.
There's no, like, where's the app that you put all the stuff in?
Hmm.
Like, where's the
Hmm.
data? And I really feel like we're in this like secret society of
Hmm.
mind where we're like, no, it's nothing like that. And they just can't see it because, again, if you're in dieter's mentality, you need like strict rules. You
Right.
need, this structure and it spit out to you. And
Hmm.
again, it doesn't work that way. You got to go from the inside to get the outside.
Right. And I think, people. And I was guilty of this at times. And I'd say, well, when I did that diet, it worked, so I'm going to do that again. But then I think about now is, well, if it really worked, I wouldn't have to do that diet again. I would have been able to make lasting changes. Um, so but it does strike me funny sometimes when I start to explain that no, it's not a program. It's just kind of changing the way you think and act and eat. But it's very easy. And I'm proof,
Hmm. Yeah.
that they're not all, that there's still some hesitation for the lack of a program. And I'm like, it is the easiest thing. So yeah.
Yeah, again, I think there's an element too where people feel like they have to earn it. They have to like there's some sort of like, if it's too easy, like
Yeah,
there's a catch type thing.
yeah,
There's no
yeah.
catch.
There's no catch.
There's no catch.
And I will say, also, and just the amount of time and energy that I have back in my life, not focused around the what and the how, and let me put it in my phone and let me track it and let me write it, which frankly is exhausting. And I think when things are so restrictive like that, it's why at least I would sometimes get to a point where I would go, oh, I just can't do this anymore. And then I would, as you say, get a case of the F
If
this.
it's, yeah.
Let me just, I'm going to eat whatever I want for the next few days. And then, the cycle would kind of continue. And now, not to say there aren't days, we just had Thanksgiving, there aren't days or whatever where I'll choose to eat a little more or whatever. But it's so different. It's just so different.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of, because I know when I um got rid of like my fitness pal and like decided I was never gonna like food log again, it was like it was like the death of someone almost, right? But then, like you're saying, there's so much space.
Hmm.
There's so much more calm, right? Like I talk about the ping pong match, right? Going on in your head. Should I eat this? Should I not eat this? But you literally, when you're in dieter's mentality and you're ta calculating all that stuff, it's an 80-hour job that you're not getting paid for,
Right.
right? And so if you were to do that in a job, you would get irritated too. You'd
Yeah.
probably be like, I'm not coming into work today. F you,
Yeah.
right?
And
Which
I
is what you're
think,
doing to
yeah,
yourself.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it just, I think when you're doing all that work, logging food or calories or whatever you're logging, and you're spending all that time, you're fixated on a process that's difficult. And then for me at least, like when it wouldn't work or when I'd go off or I'd say you know, forget this for the day or whatever, there was always that constant feeling of, okay, it didn't work again, and feeling um, like failure and like,
Yeah.
oh, another diet that didn't work, or I have to do this all again. It was just that constant kind of up and down that left me, right around the time I found your podcast, feeling like, what, I can't do this anymore. I need, something's got to be out there that's better. Um, and there was, and it came to me in your podcast.
Yay. I'm so glad that you came across this and the program
Yeah.
because I know in the Jumpstart you lost, I think, 17 pounds in the 12
17
weeks.
in the 12 weeks. Yeah.
And then
And
you went
then
on to lose a total of 30
yep.
independently.
Yeah, well, yep, after the
Yeah.
17 with you,
Hmm.
I lost 30 total. And, within that 30, there's probably like a 5 pound, 4 to 5 pounds up and down that I go through just in a natural cycle.
Hmm.
But always never more, and always kind of back at that, just with life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't, and when I might be up a pound or two, I don't feel like, oh my gosh, the end of the world, this is horrible, I'm terrible. I just, with the mindset work we've done, it's all about, choices, and you know getting out those tools, or just, putting them back in place, and it's easy to get back on track, for not, for lack of a better word, but just, get myself back to where I want to be.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between, and I know we've talked about this, like
Yeah.
falling off the wagon type thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because when you fall off the wagon and you're in dieter's mentality, it's drama land. It's like, oh my gosh, I failed. I have to start
Mm-hmm.
all over. And no, if you're in my program, even if your weight were to fluctuate,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a problem because you
Mm-hmm.
have the tools that you can just kind of insert it. And again, it's never about, it's just you out of alignment of the things that you say you want. That
Right.
really is. So
And it
go ahead.
does take practice,
Yeah.
like I said, I met you when I was 55. I'm 57 now. Or yeah. And that was, if started when I was 10, that was 40 years of doing something one way, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm practicing these new mindset techniques and tools and ways just every day. So it's getting easier and easier. But in the beginning, it was definitely change. And I remember you saying to me, like when I joined the group, you said maybe 3 weeks in, you're going to want to quit.
Yep.
And I was like, no. And you were like, no, no, because I'm going to tell, I'm honest and whatever. And I never wanted to quit, but 3 weeks in, it was, challenging because you were challenging the way I've done things for so long. But in at the same time you were challenging me, I was doing what you were advising and I was losing weight and it
Hmm.
wasn't that hard. So, you had just kind of had to trust in the process too, you had to, as
Yeah.
you were practicing these new things.
Yeah. Yeah. The good old honeymoon phase. It's week 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Anytime you start something, yeah, week 2 or 3, because that's when kind of real life starts kicking in.
Yeah.
And again, if you have the mindset skills set up for it and you know it's coming, right? Again, because I mean, I coached you guys on it. Um, it's just so much easier to navigate.
Yeah. And having the women too, we were all, feeling different things at different times, but that camaraderie of being in the group together was really having your support and their support. It was great.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely a really good group that you were in for
Yeah.
sure. So I know that we are currently, you're still working with me, but
Mhm.
not in the weight loss area. So for everybody listening, Elizabeth is still working with me in Maven Heart, which is um, a side business of mine that is going to be coming out in the future. So just keep your ears out for that on the podcast, and I'll let you know what that is. But so, Elizabeth, I guess if you were going to, like, if someone were to come up to you and be like, what would you say about this program in a condensed way? What are the highlights you would tell them?
Mm. Well, first of all, finding your podcast and, being on this journey with your support, I feel like has been a pivotal moment event in my life for the better. So again, I talked about the fact that I was in a place where I was just feeling very unhappy about my weight and then about how I felt about myself. And this journey working with you has not only allowed me to learn how to lose the weight, but with the mindset work, it's just given me a whole different way of looking at myself, approaching other people, being more positive, being more true to who I am in all aspects of my life. So, when you start with mindset work, even though we started in the weight loss, it really can permeate to other parts of your life. So I just think working with you, Nicole, has really been life changing for me. And um, yeah, I mean, for anyone who wants to lose weight and has tried all the diets out there, and while they may work sometimes or but not long lasting, this is definitely I would recommend this type of work because it's different work. It's not about the food and it's not about, I know it sounds silly, but it's really not even about your weight. It's about how you feel about yourself and how you kind of treat yourself and about making a commitment to yourself. And so you really learn a lot about yourself, and that's why I continued with working with you outside the weight loss. I was at a place where I was making a change in my life, career wise, and working with you on that was really helpful. So, yeah, I would say jump right in. This could be your answer too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember when you first joined the group, you were very much like a check the box. I'm going to do it perfectly. I'm going to do it, by the book, very much the student, right? And
Yeah.
now there's this like there's this relaxed calm about you.
Hmm.
Um, as I compare from when I first saw you to
Hmm.
now. So, and I think that's indicative of the mindset work, that anybody does because you're definitely more assured of who you are and you're
Yes.
definitely more assured of who you want to be.
Yeah. I remember when I think it was in our first call. I hadn't joined the group yet, but it was the call where you just kind
Hmm.
of get background onto whether or not the clients would be a good fit for the group. I remember you asked me like, what makes you happy? Because I had said to you I wasn't happy like with my weight, and you were like, what does make you happy? And I'll never forget, I kept giving you answers and you kept saying, well, that's about somebody else. What makes
Yes.
you happy? And I could not name one thing that day that made me happy. It was all about my kids or my family or my job or whatever. And through the mindset work with weight loss and after, I'm really learning so much more about myself too. It's really great.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because when anybody is like, what brings you happiness? A lot of women, especially, are like, my kids, my
Hmm.
husband, my career, but
Hmm.
that has nothing to do with you,
Yeah.
really, right? Um, yeah, so that's a good learning lesson for everyone to like
Yeah.
ask yourself what makes you happy? Like you happy,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember
right?
afterwards thinking I couldn't name one thing that made me happy that didn't have to do with someone
Somebody
else.
else, yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah. So it's just it's a whole learning thing because really, it is just it is weight loss. So yes, it has to do with food and eating but it's really more about the why. Like why was I overeating at times? Why was I eating too much? Why was I doing all those things? And you taught me to come at things with a no judgment on myself, and being more curious and instead of condemning. Like
Hmm.
why are you doing this instead of being mad at yourself for doing it?
Yeah.
And through that, you kind of learn why you're doing it, and then you can make changes if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think again, our generation was kind of taught you need to berate yourself. That's
Mhm.
how you cause motivation. And yeah, it does spark things, right? It does kind of like the fire a little bit, but it's not the gasoline that keeps everything going on.
It's not, it might light the fire, but like you said, it doesn't keep it going. Like,
Yeah.
because I had fires lit lots of times with lots of different diets. But that like longevity, the sustaining it, like it has to be something you can do over time.
Hmm.
And spending all your time counting calories or food blogging or all this stuff, like it just, especially for women who are working and have families and you're so busy, it's just, in my opinion, not sustainable for long periods of time. And then if you stop, do you go, off the deep end and eat all the food and gain it? Yes, that's what I had been doing. So what I love about what I've done with my work with you is it's just easy. It's life. I follow rule number one and I'm good.
Yeah. And for those of you who are not in the program, like rule number one is more like a guideline. So
Mhm.
don't think it's like some strict thing that you know, is like dieter's mentality. So awesome. All right. So we're gonna get into the fun lightning round, which
Okay.
is where I'm gonna just throw some questions at you and we'll see what sticks. All right. I'm gonna start. I usually start with like cat or dog. We're not gonna start with that. What is your favorite book and why?
Oh, I have two books that I've just read recently that I loved. I loved the book Lessons in Chemistry,
Hmm,
which
never
I
heard of
which
that.
they made an Apple series about it, which was excellent. And then I just finished reading recently the book about the octopus, extraordinary, like, I'm not going to say it right, extraordinary creatures or
Hmm.
something about an octopus who communicates to the woman who's cleaning his tank. It sounds kind of out there, but it's an excellent book, and I think they're making a movie out of it. So those are my two favorite books that I've read recently.
Oh, that is so cool. I've not
Extraordinary
heard of.
Creatures or something like that. I never remember the titles of books.
That's okay. I'm sure if somebody Googles book on octopuses
Yeah,
that is current,
yeah,
you are going to find it.
it was very good.
I have never heard of either of those, so I'm going
Yeah.
to check them out as well. What would be your favorite inspirational quote?
Hmm. I'm going to quote Nikki T
Okay.
because you gave me a quote that I use very often when I wake up in the morning,
Mhm.
and that is universe, show me how awesome it can be.
Awesome. I cannot take credit for that quote because that's not mine, but I have shared it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because
Universe, show me how good it can get.
I was a person who was always waiting for the next shoe to drop, like the
Hmm.
next bad thing to happen. And you've kind of taught me to think in a different way. So now I'm always waiting for the next good thing to happen. So that was your quote.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, think about that, everybody. We always think that the shoe's going to drop, right? And that could be your reality. But we
Mhm.
also have the option to think that the shoes are going to stay on,
Yep.
and and we don't choose that a lot of times because negative bias, whatever the conditioning we've been brought up to believe, worry, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's an option for you,
Yeah.
right? Or you could
I
just ditch the shoes and
yeah.
I don't know, put sneakers on, whatever. Um, okay, one more. If you could sit down and have a cup of coffee with anyone, live, dead, doesn't matter, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Well, I guess if they were alive, I could make it happen. So I will say my mom died when she was only 64. So that
Mm,
was, it was about 21 years ago. So
mm,
I guess yeah, we'd have a lot to talk about.
that's awesome. I'm sorry to hear about your mom.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to wrap up. What is one tip that you would like to leave everyone with, if you could?
Um, I know it might sound cliche, but losing weight doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard. And I know it goes against everything or at least it goes against everything I thought up until joining the 12 weeks Jumpstart. It doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's a really good tip
Yeah.
because everybody thinks it has to be hard.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story today. I hope it was helpful to everyone. And thank you again for being here.
Yeah, no, I thank you for having me. And listen, if one person listens and says, you know what, I'm going to give this a try, I think that's great because I know how my life has changed with just not the struggle that I had for so many years anymore. And it doesn't happen overnight. And like I said, it takes practice because it's years of undoing what you kind of thought. But yeah, it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. And if you want more help, go to my website at weight loss for women over 40 at the end.net. And you can join the Jumpstart, you can do private coaching, whatever you like. So, again, thank you, Elizabeth, for being here.
Thank
Everybody
you.
else, have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Okay.